Good evening. My name is Brandon Faber. Today I'm going to be talking about risk and a risk management matrix, about what that is and how it's used to determine different risks, if they're low, medium, or high risks. So first off, I'd like to give a definition of what risk is. So based off of the Federal Emergency Management Agency, they define risk as the likelihood that a threat will harm an asset with some severity of consequences. So now that we know what risk is, let's look at a risk management matrix. So here I have drawn a simple risk management matrix. Right here we can see the likelihood, and then up here across the columns are the likelihood, the rows are the consequence. So if we look down here, this is a low likelihood and it's a low consequence, so it's going to be a low risk. Up here in this yellowish orange, it's going to be a medium risk, so that would be either a high likelihood of something happening, but the consequence, if it does happen, is pretty low, or maybe it's that would be here, or if it's a high consequence but the likelihood of it happening is really low. Sorry, got those mixed up. Or just somewhere in the middle there, you see. Or if it's a high likelihood, so we're up here, and then a high consequence, moving over here, this would be in the red section. That would mean that it is a high risk. So one example that I have come across in my work experience is 2 years ago when I was working for a irrigation company. We were putting in sprinklers for different homes and apartment buildings and stuff for their grass. So we would pound in these grounding rods, and we had a kind of pounder thing. So like the metal rod would be sticking in the ground, and then we'd have our hands on this grounder thing, and then we'd lift it up and just pound it down, up and down. So one day I was doing this, and I went up just a little bit too high. So when I came back down, I went over my hands went over the bar. It didn't go down onto the bar. And then my face went right, like the bar went right through my face, right up into my mouth and into my cheek. It ripped my lip open. This risk, I would say, is a very low likelihood. None of the guys that I had worked with had ever seen it happen. Most of the time, it's not going to. Most people aren't going to miss it like that. That was just me being silly. So a low likelihood, but the consequence of it was really high. So I'd put it probably in one of these two sections. Probably here, honestly. Like that. I'm going to go back. Right that way. Okay. So I'd put it right there as my first example, because I'd say this is a high consequence because it ripped open my lip, it went into my cheek. I went to see doctors, I had to get my lips sewn back together, but I got lucky. If it would have hit me just a little bit lower, there's a tube that runs through in your mouth somewhere, kind of back in your cheek, lower down. But if that would have happened, then I would have had to get a big surgery that would have affected how I eat and talk for the rest of my life. Would have been a big incision all the way down around my ear and around my mouth. Or if it would have gone a little bit higher, it could have gone up into my brain, or it could have gone straight back through my throat. So these are all bad things. I got lucky, it wasn't too bad, but that's a pretty high consequence. So I'd put that right here at the highest consequence, but it really never happens. None of them have ever seen it. So I'd put it at either the 1 or the 2, putting it here in the medium risk. The second example that I would like to bring up would be at the same job, would be dehydration. So dehydration is a lot more common, but typically isn't too high of a risk, or the consequence isn't too high. If it's really severe, it's definitely going to be really high, but most of the time it's not very high. So I'd probably put the likelihood at like 3 or 4 and the consequence at 2 or 3, putting it somewhere in this area. So once again, we'll just throw it there. But once again, this is a medium risk, but in a very different area of the matrix here. This is a fairly high likelihood because we are out in the sun all day, working, digging, placing pipes, just working hard in the sun. If you don't drink enough water, like the sweat and just being in the sun, it's really going to drain you. But the consequence of it isn't typically too high. Typically, if you just drink some water or go into the shade and cool off and drink water slowly, like you'll be fine again. That's why I'd probably put it right here. So this is what risk matrix is. It shows us the low risks, medium risks, and high risks. So if you ever need to figure out what your risk is, you can use this matrix to determine low, medium, or high. Thank you.